Good evening, Simon here, Explosive Action, back for another death and black metal vinyl update. I'm also going to spotlight two particular places that I buy these records from, so let's get into it. The first four records I'm going to show here come from a shop that I've shown on my shopping videos before that also has a very good online store. That's Repressed Records out in Newtown here in Sydney, Australia. And I thought I might give them a mention because people may not know about the online portion, and that's useful to other people elsewhere in the country. Maybe not so useful for those overseas, but you know, you've got plenty of places to choose from as well. But in Australia, it's good to have some online shops that we can buy from using our own money and without having to worry about international shipping. Repressed Records is one of those, as well as having a very good in-store experience. Their online metal section is pretty great as well. And after a certain amount of money, you get to a free shipping bracket, which is what I made use of this time. The first record I'm going to show you is not the new one. It is in fact the old one, but it is the newest release from the British band Vacuous. And it's either going to be pronounced catabasis or catabasis. I don't know. Probably not even a word. But anyway, this is the debut 5-track EP from UK's horror death metal act Vacuous. Their album from last year, Dreams of Dysmorphia, was one of my favourites of 2022. And it goes from sludgy death doom to a more moderate death metal and even some sporadic blasty stuff. Heavy as British steel, and it's the same here on the debut EP. They're very similar beasts actually. Down-tuned guitars, thundering drums, gurgling vocals, all of that nasty death metal stuff that you like. There's a 3-piece band though on this EP. They are a 5-piece. They expanded for the debut album, but on this EP, only a 3-piece. But the material, as I said, is no lesser than the full-length album that came after it. It's a truly excellent debut release. Great cover art on it too. There's the back. It's 5 tracks, about 20 minutes or so. And not including the 3-track demo tape that came out before it. I wonder if that will get a reissue as well. I've never heard the tracks on that one. That would be very nice to hear. But in every way, this is as good as the album. I was listening to this before. I hadn't heard this EP prior to it arriving in my mailbox recently, and it's just as good, as I'm saying, as the album. You could tell me it's the new EP that came after it. I would just as much believe you. Excellent tracks from this band. They're just a really, really great British band. Originally, that tape, I think, of this was released on a label called FHED, which was a small Cardiff-based label back in 2020. It had an issue on 2021 on LP, and maybe it was very limited. So it's really good that in this case, it's been put out by Sentient Ruin and getting a bit of a wider release, which is how I got it from Repressed Records. Repressed obviously buy from many labels and many distributors, and when it's on a bigger label like Sentient, it makes it easier for me to get right here in Sydney, and that's what I did. So yeah, very smart that Sentient Ruin got this really excellent material out in sort of the void between their last album and presumably their next one. Because as I said, you could convince me that this is a new EP, and I would absolutely believe you. Excellent material. Take a quick look. All the records I'm showing you today are black, and is there anything else in here? No, not even a lyric sheet. But yeah, just a simple black LP and the hype stickers. A thing that I tend to do is if the hype sticker will come off nicely, I will stick it to the inner. Reading from that, finally reissued the crushing 2020 MLP, which introduced Vacuous as one of death metal's most promising and exciting new prospects, packing in 20 minutes of dark and punishing death metal carnage. Catabasis sees the British horde expand upon the foundations laid by bands like Incantation, Necrophagia, Autopsy, and Convulse to elevate the genre to new realms of grimness and terror. And it had a download card inside, which I've used. Those bands are not a bad comparison, and I hadn't even considered the Necrophagia, but that is pretty accurate. I think there is that nasty horror of Necrophagia mixed in there with the other bands that they mentioned. And yeah, Vacuous, great band. Love the album, love the EP just as much. The next one I got from Repressed Records, I was very excited that they got in stock, and I've been after this one since I heard it was coming. I intentionally did not listen to anything online. I love the first album so much, and they're one of those bands that are very sporadic with their releases. I am talking about Ascended Dead with Even Fall of the Apocalypse. Look at that art. You can barely see the logo in there with the scribblings. It's just outrageous. So good. These guys were formerly a Dark Descent band. Back in 2017, they released their debut, Abhorrent Manifestation. As I said, it was an excellent album. And there's been EPs and things, but and a split with some bands, but no other full lengths until now. Now they're on $20 spin for this one, Even Fall of the Apocalypse. And these guys, they're just relentless and chaotic. If you've never heard them, they have the swirling riffs of Immolation, Morbid Angel, that kind of stuff, the ferocity of Angel Corpse, and that overall blackness and the punishing vocals of a band like Titan Blood. All together, you listen to this, it is visceral, it is chaotic, it is absolutely just mind-blowing in the ferocity of this thing. All together, you mix it together with the ripping guitars and frenetic leads, destructive drums. I'm loving this release. I think it's even better than the debut. Members of the band are from some other really great acts like Chthonic Deity, Ritual Necromancy, really good bands. And I think this is the kind of death metal that well-seasoned fans of the genre would really like. People that gravitate to bands like Sadistic Intent, or even know who Sadistic Intent are, I think would really enjoy something like this. It's journeyman's death metal. You're well onto your journey with death metal. This is your next step. It's not possibly your first step. I think it would probably scare a lot of first comers away, but for me, this is absolutely the kind of stuff I'm loving. Here's the back. There's a lot going on here in the 11 tracks and 41 minutes of death metal. It never lets up. Besides one lengthy, mostly acoustic instrumental that has just as frenetic riffing, but with acoustic guitars and undistorted electric guitars at the same time. It leads into a very clean harmony electric guitar solo, and then it has Spanish guitars over blasting, and that works. That whole thing just works. It's so good. My favourite track, I think, on this one is on side B. It's called Visceral Strike. What a name. I mean, if anything tells you what this album sounds like, a visceral strike, that exactly tells you what you're going to get on this one. It is unrelenting, that track. It introduces a fun sort of howl into the vocals that I really like. And at a few points, and it aligns those howls with dive bomb guitars. And that's just chef's kiss to me. I mean, that is exactly why I'm here. So good. The title track itself, Even Fall of the Apocalypse, the 10th track on side B there, that's another pretty exceptional track on here. Outstanding, I think. It has almost, I could hear some like Nile in the guitars on that one, like that sort of Middle Eastern flavor kind of thing was coming across on that track. So really good. Comes in a really nice gatefold with more of that fantastic sort of sketching drawing. There's a lot here you need to look into. I mean, it looks like you've got tribes with bows and arrows, or is this hell? I mean, it's really hard to tell what's going on here, but there's definitely some kind of warfare happening here. It is the even fall of the apocalypse. Everyone's out for themselves, I suppose. The artwork on this one here, which I've just been talking about, is from Kyle Bowen, who did the artwork on the debut, and it's amazing. The whole package here is excellent. I highly recommend it. And to me, they still feel like a Dark Descent band. It is a little odd to me that they're on $20 spin. The next one here I picked up from Repressed Records, or I should say that they delivered to me from their online store. I am incredibly excited to have a physical copy of this one. I have been playing it digitally for probably 2 months now. It is just always on when I'm on my phone and out walking about. I'm always got my headphones on listening to this one. Thantifaxath, Hive Mind Necrosis, another band that Thantifaxath, I have to presume Thantifaxath is only way you can say this band's name, but whatever. These guys, man, back in 2014, this anonymous entity, Thantifaxath, released an absolutely outstanding album called Sacred White Noise. A very much an exploration of avant-garde, progressive, extreme metal. And that album has completely stood the test of time. For me, it's entered the realms of all of the greats, and one of those ones I consistently return to. It's up there for me, like, you know, Blood Incantation, Starspawn. It's something that I will always just pick off the shelf. Probably once or twice a year it will come out, and it will just get played through for a few times. It is an exceptional album. That album came off the back of their debut self-titled 2011 EP, which was a really strong entry for the band. But then in 2017, after the last album, there was another EP called Void Masquerading as Matter. That just pushed them even further, that they just progressed even further on that EP. I want to use the word weird, because the band's pretty weird, and they were just more weird on that EP. And here we are, finally 2023, Hive Mind Necrosis, only their second full length, and it is absolute masterwork. Sometimes I cannot even find the time signatures when I'm listening to this. It will change so frequently, I don't even know what it's changing to or from. This is possibly something that if you were in a band and you'd been in the band for 20 years and you've been playing a guitar for 30, you might understand and be able to comprehend and talk about the musical aspects of this a bit more than I can. I'm not an instrument person, I've never played one in my life, but I can appreciate what's going on here, and it's crazy. Every 2 bars it will change to something else, and it is a little difficult always to grasp what is going on. It is otherworldly, completely strange sounding, and a very different way to approach metal. And yet it's another example of there being something in the water in Canada, because these are another Canadian band, and whenever you get a Canadian metal band, it's strange. I don't know why, but it's true. Think of any Canadian metal band. Think starting from Voivod, going to Gorguts, and weird. They're just weird. Canada, man. Take some examples from other bands here, like maybe the analog sort of black metal, which is also its own weirdness of Negative Plane. Those really, really strange moments of someone like Bluetooth Nord, particularly their 777 trilogy from a few years ago. Sometimes there's a bit of a psychedelic aspect, like maybe the first Aranci Pazuzu album. That's sort of the stuff you get with Thantifaxath here on Hive Mind Necrosis. I think also another excellent Dark Descent band and Canadian band that I see a lot of similarities to is Elosith. That's definitely for me one of those bands that should be talked about more, but they've never done a full length. Elosith have done 2 EPs, they have a 3rd EP coming out, and that's kind of it over 15 years or whatever it is. Maybe it's just a decade, but anyway, we're not talking about Elosith, we're talking about Thantifaxath. These guys are as strange musically as their name of the band is to pronounce. There's riffs that if you wrote them down, I don't think they would look that look like they should be played that way. And as I said, coming from someone that doesn't know how to play an instrument, it's one of those cases where it all should be wrong, but it all works so right. Drum patterns that flip from a more normal blasting into sort of offbeat jazz, and then utterly weird, I don't know how to sort of describe it, but like declining speed kick patterns where the double kick starts fast and then every alternating kick to make up double kick, it's getting slower and slower until it's just descending and descending with a guitar riff over it that doesn't make any sense, and then they repeat the whole thing 4 times and that becomes a phrase. These guys have their own world going on, and it's absolutely fantastic. The vocals are snarled and really twisted, very much suits the music these guys play. Sometimes it's deeper and more occult-like, but it's always sinister sounding. That is definitely a thing with this band. Look at the image here. It's obviously a piece of a classic work here, and it itself is pretty sinister. Musically, vocally, these guys are pretty sinister sounding. The second last track on side B, which is, what is it? Bub Lilith Tunnels, Bub. Lilith Tunnels. I should have wrote that down. That one is sort of an instrumental mixed soundscape. It's got alien-like vocals, some sci-fi elements, very unnerving atmosphere for an instrumental with, as I said, just those alien vocals that come in every now and then. This is good. I only just received this on vinyl, but like I said, I've been playing it digitally for a while and just trying to wrap my head around it. With the first album, it didn't take me as long to wrap my head around it. This one, I've enjoyed more straight away, but I'm enjoying it with a puzzled look on my face, and I'm getting less puzzled each time I play it through, if that makes sense. And then I played it for the first time on vinyl. It sounds magnificent, and it's starting to really make sense. And I can, now that I know where everything is, I can tell when things are coming up, and it just makes more sense now, and I'm loving it. Thantifaxath, you really have to approach Hive Mind Necrosis with intent. It's not background music. It is not head-banging music. It's not even an album I can pick a favorite track from. It is, however, quite the journey. Take a look quickly inside here. Again, just a black LP, and we get a expansion there of the artwork on the front, and some credits there on the back with more of the artwork. But it's been, some time since we had a full length. It's been about 9 years, and I am amazed and incredibly happy with the music that we have here on Hive Mind Necrosis from Thantifaxath. And the last item that I got from Repressed Records in my order is an entirely new entity, and something that I did not know what it was. I think I might have seen something online, but it wasn't until I saw the cover art on Repressed web store that I then checked it out and quickly listened to it online and thought it was fantastic, and I had to pick it up. This is the debut EP, though it's practically a full length, of Lunar Chamber. This is called Shambhalic Vibrations. My God, look at the cover artwork on this one. Absolutely stunning piece there. And the logo and the border is all, and I think the text down there is all sort of in spot gloss yellow and really just shines. Anyway, this is a brand new progressive death doom band out of Atlanta. Their debut EP here that I said clocks in about 29 minutes. So yeah, you could argue it's a full length. It's longer than Rain in Blood, so yeah, sure, it can be a full length. But it opens with a short intro before the first track proper, called Spirit, Body, and the Seeing Self. Has deep guttural vocals and staccato drums that, on the offset, just reminded me of sort of latter Deeds of Flesh, where they get very sci-fi. So they last sort of 3 albums, Deeds of Flesh. Kind of reminded me of that. But there's a lot more below the surface here than just brutal death metal, technical brutal death metal, with pinch harmonics and that kind of stuff. This plays more in the same sandpit as Void Ceremony, Blood Incantation, and even that extra weird angle of Universally Estranged, another band that I've talked up and very much enjoy. It even has fretless bass on it. So yes, it's in the Void Ceremony basket. Very dynamic and peppery drums. There's points in this when the lead guitar playing leads and solos sounds something like Japanese video game music. It might be in the production, certainly in the way that the notes are played. It just made me think that I'd hit a high score, and that was fantastic. I loved that. The bass itself gets a bit of a solo as well, without the guitar accompanying it, and again being fretless. It's all over the map. It almost sounded like a horn section. That was pretty impressive. The instrumental pieces on this one, kind of ethereal, definitely sort of matches the mist going on there. Practically new age, I guess, those instrumentals. But when the band play their most sort of straightforward, sticking the closest to just sort of death metal rulebooks, I found similarities with an album from a band that I really like that people don't seem to talk about anymore, and that's Monolith Death Cult, their third album called Triumvirate. The second track on this one, the Bodhi Tree, the second proper track, because we're surrounded by a bunch of sort of interludes and things. That's definitely where I heard that sound. It's also where I heard the most Blood Incantation in the band, particularly Hidden Histories of the Human Race. There's even a sort of a bleh that comes out of it from the vocalist that sounds just like Blood Incantation did, so enjoyed that. The band appears to be a three-piece with a session drummer. The two guitarists, this is fantastic, go by the names Timeworm Nexus and, here we go, They Who May Not Be Perceived. That's a great name for a guitarist. So that's those two guys, and they also do vocals as well. I don't know if there's one that's a sort of dominant vocalist or not, but they do. There is some trading off, you can hear that. And the fretless bass is performed by a guy called Ether Lotus, who also is the live bassist for Void Ceremony. So it all comes full circle there. The whole B-side is taken up by this one track here, which is fantastic, called Crystalline Blessed Light Flows from Violet Mountains into Lunar Chambers. Very poetic title, that one. That is the doomiest one. It's almost mournful congregation-paced death doom from the start, with even more guttural vocals. They're right down there, getting that funeral doom kind of sound. But it also adds, and this was really nice, sort of clean singing baritone harmonies. As I said, the two guitarists do vocals each, and they do these harmonies with a sort of a low pitch, the baritone style. That was really good. Once they completed that part of the song, it moved on to them doing gutturals with possibly the same lyrics, or it's at least the same phrasing, but the music behind it, the guitars were playing the melody from when they were singing it with cleans, and I thought that whole thing sounded great. One of those occasions I almost picked the needle up, took it back to listen to it again. Very, very cool. I like that part a lot. There's interludes after with like an organ of some description, and then it goes back to the death doom with harmonized, very heavy metal sounding dueling guitar solos. It's great little EP, this one. As I said, it's almost full length, but the fact is it's really only 3 tracks and a couple of interludes. But you know, that's death doom. They play long, slow songs, so if they want to call it an EP, they can. I presume that means their full length will be a double LP. Another one on black, and again I put the hype sticker on the inner sleeve when I can. There's the guys there. You mean there's even a Cathedral shirt going on here that's again going to help you understand the music being played here. Yeah, fantastic. There's the lyrics on that side. So yeah, this is a really strong debut. I don't know how they got instantly on the $20 spin. With I don't see any demos or anything like that, but somehow they did, and I'm very happy about that. And a very strong debut. Let's get a full length. So I want to talk about another distro that I buy stuff from quite frequently. This is a purely online store, a very small one run by one guy out of Queensland. It's called Total War Records, and they have a really great range of, it's pretty much just underground death and black metal, so it's targeted to people like me. And I frequent from his store quite a lot, and he makes it a mission to be incredibly affordable. I don't know of many other online Australian stores that hit the same price point that he does. He doesn't have any buildings to pay for. He's just got a very reasonable price and very good shipping. So Total War Records, I picked up 2 albums this time from him. And the first one was not what I was going to pick up. I was going to pick up the second album. Then I saw this thing listed, and I thought the cover was really, really cool. So I checked out a sample online, and well, I had to buy it. And I was halfway through listening to the sample, and I sent it around to people going, did you even know this thing existed? This is a band called Ruïm, with an M, that's R-U-I-M. The I has an umlaut on it, and the M is a capital. I don't know, somebody went to design school, but the album is called Black Royal Spiritism I-O Sino da Igreja, and I think the last part of that is Portuguese. Here we have the debut release from Rune Eriksson, aka Blasphemer. It's his new band, Ruïm. And as I said, I didn't know anything about this until I saw the cover, and it just drew me in, and I had to go look at it. And I think it was the logo. I just looked at it and went, that's an impressive logo, and it looks quite occult. Like, this is going to be interesting. And it was. So I checked out the single that was online on YouTube, and it was fantastic, and here I am with the album. It is not a stretch to say that Blasphemer's work here is definitely a continuation on what he was doing with his stint in Mayhem. Especially, I think, sort of Wolf's Lair Abyss and then Grand Declaration of War. That's what we're getting here with Ruïm. The drums on this, so Blasphemer plays everything except the drums. The drums are from a relative newcomer to the scene, a guy called Caesar Vesvra. Don't know much about him, but he's playing probably intentionally a Hellhammer type of drums to this, which really helps with the comparisons to that era of Mayhem, that sort of 2000 to 2005 kind of era. The riffs on here, so what I understand is that Blasphemer uncovered some old tapes of riffs that he wrote for late 90s Mayhem, for around Grand Declaration and Wolf's Lair Abyss, that he didn't use. And I don't know if he's reworked them or if it was just an inspiration for him to go out and do similar stuff again. And here we have his debut album. The main riff in the song The Triumph of Night and Fire, which was the single that was released, the one in the video that I heard, that is so obviously a Mayhem riff. That's why I was so excited when I sent it around, because it's not a Mayhem of 2023 riff, it's a Mayhem of 2002 riff, and it was mightily impressive. Also, I said Blasphemer did the music on here beside the drums, but he also does the vocals. He's going for very much a Maniac style, sort of strain, scream, that kind of hoarse, whispered, twisted, snarl kind of thing. Not quite as demented as Maniac. It's pulled back a bit, but it's in that same kind of style. He also does that sort of like that chanting, that kind of stuff that Maniac did. Yeah, Blasphemer pulls that off a few times on here as well. And lyrically, the album is in both English and in Portuguese. Let's take a look at the back here. There's, I'm not too sure what's going on there. We've got a candle. It's a great album, but taking a look at side B's opening here, Black Royal Spiritism, that's the one that starts being quite different. It's a slow and heavy track, followed by then a very destructive, incredibly violent Norwegian lyric song called Evig Dissonance. That one is just absolute fury. But the one that really rams home the fact that Blasphemer was in Mayhem is that we have a cover of Fall of Seraphs from the Wolf's Lair Abyss EP, and it's fantastic. It's even more aggressive, and he didn't do the vocals on this one. He got Proscriptor from Apsu, formerly of Absu, and his vocals on this are just nuts. They are unhinged. So that was really, really nice cover. Very much happy with that. This is not just a nostalgic trip. I have to say, this is actually, despite all the comparisons, quite forward thinking. The more you go on with it, the more you find lots of things that were not done in Mayhem. And the things that he might have continued exploring had he stayed with Mayhem. Who knows? But this is probably, for me, the best album that Mayhem did not write. I'm enjoying this way more than I did Demon and Esoteric Warfare, the albums that Blasphemer were not on. I'm enjoying this one, Black Royal Spiritism from Ruïm, a lot more. And I highly recommend you pick this up. If you like that turning point in black metal, that time around 2000 when the old guard were having to renew themselves a bit, Ruïm, Black Royal Spiritism, Io Sino da Egregia is the album for you. Out on Peaceful Records. It's just got the lyric sleeve in here, which is, as I said, mixed lyrics, English, Norwegian, and Portuguese. Does not include the lyrics for Fall of Seraphs. I wonder if there was a legal reason for that. And then I put the hype sticker neatly in the corner here. And you get another piece of art on the side here, which is fantastic. And a black LP, so it will not bring that one out. So there you go, the debut from Ruïm, Black Royal Spiritism. Highly, highly recommend checking this one out if you like that 2000s era Mayhem. And the second album that I picked up from Total War Records, and the last one for this update, is the Sophomore release from Static Abyss, Aborted from Reality. If you don't know Static Abyss, this is kind of the splinter project of Chris Reifert and Greg Wilkinson, both from Autopsy, playing very much Autopsy-like material. It's just got to be said. Thick and nasty death doom, but it's also got equal amounts of crusty D beat mixed in with occult doom. It's a like, it is just very similar to Autopsy, but I think it does focus a bit more on the actual Doom aspects of this than Death Doom. The real difference, though, is that Greg from Autopsy who plays bass in Autopsy, gets to play guitar as well here. So it's evenly split that Greg plays guitar and bass, and Chris continues with vocals and drums like he does in Autopsy. The second track, particularly on this one, Worm Skinned, it's almost a catchy single. I heard that track online and thought, this album is already better than the previous album. An absolute highlight of real chunky Death Doom riffs on that one. Cathedral of Vomit, what a fantastic name that follows it. That's even slower with dark, dissonant riffs on that one. And the next one, Cerebral Ghost, is the opposite. This one is like fast trem riffs and blast, 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 blast kind of drumming before it finds itself into a real mid-paced chuggy groove, and then flips back and forth between the two styles throughout the song, giving you real head nods as you're listening to it. A real head nodding album. That's one of those ones. Oh man, so good. Look, it sounds like Autopsy, but it doesn't, I guess. The last track here, Mind Tentacles, has got a bit of a bass doodling thing going on, like it goes off and does its own little thing, which is really nice. But look, there's no escaping it. It is very much Autopsy-like material. But that's not a bad thing. This is like Autopsy, Static Abyss. They're like Bolt Thrower. Like they're doing stuff within their style, within the confines of the genre, and they just managed to belt out memorable track after memorable track with fantastic riffs, and that's why you buy it. They're not going to reinvent the wheel. The third album from Static Abyss, if they do one, will probably sound very similar to this one. And that's good. So yeah, I really recommend it. I'm enjoying the two albums from Static Abyss more than I am the majority of Autopsy's material. And this is probably one of my the missing pieces in my collection. I only really know the first couple of Autopsy. I don't really know the newer stuff that much. I've only heard little bits here and there. So I'm not saying that with any grand authority that Static Abyss is better than later Autopsy. I'm just not that familiar with it. But for me, this Static Abyss is really, really fantastic stuff. And another great release out on Peaceful. Taking a look inside here, you get the two guys. Very simple, black and white, almost Dark Throne looking layout here. Very standard Peaceful. And the lyrics there on the back, so straightforward stuff. And that is Aborted from Reality from Static Abyss. So that's the 6 albums I wanted to show you today, a mix of death metal and black metal. All kind of different from each other, and they both came from two very different stores. Repressed Records, who have a physical presence in Newtown here in Sydney, and an online store, and Total War Records, who have an online-only store in Queensland. Both will ship anywhere in Australia. I'm going to leave the links for both the stores below, along with all the links to the YouTube, so you can listen to the things I've shown today. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, check out this thing, check out that thing. I'll see you next time.